Hey everybody, Jeff Miller here from Target Test Prep, and today I'm very excited to discuss a particular video with you, or a particular topic, that is how to get started with your GRE preparation. So today we're going to go through 5 steps that you can follow on how to get started and how to basically set up a clear, efficient, and effective study plan so you can start from beginning to end to your GRE score goal. First, I want to discuss step 1. Get to know what the GRE tests. Now, one of the first things you'll be doing soon after this is you will be taking, or I'll be recommending that you take a practice exam to get a baseline score. But you don't want to just dive into the practice exam without really understanding the concepts or what is actually tested or how the questions are formatted on the GRE. So what you need to first do, spend a little bit of time. You can go to maybe the ETS website. You can even check out the TTP materials where we have intro chapters on all the verbal and math that you'd be expected to know on the GRE. Either way, go to any of those places and just read about the question types and the format of those question types. So, starting with verbal, you have sentence equivalence questions, you have text completion questions, and you have reading comprehension questions, right? Now, you don't need to study those for weeks. You really just need to get a feel for how those questions are laid out, what you're being tested on, and how to correctly answer them. For example, if you have a multiple answer question or you have a text completion question in which you need to fill in multiple answers, just understand how those work and operate so that you're not getting things wrong on the practice test just because you don't know that question type. And then with quant, your job is pretty much the same thing. Take a look at the question types. Well, on quant, you have your regular multiple choice where you fill in one answer. You have multiple choice where you can fill in multiple answers. You have numeric entry where you actually have to type in the answer. And then you also have quantitative comparison where you're determining which quantity is greater, or if you can't determine which quantity is greater, or if the quantities are equal. So again, spend some time, go through a couple of these questions just to see how they're laid out, so that by the time you get to your practice exam, you'll have a feel for what's supposed to be done when presented with these questions. And we'll talk more about the practice exam in a moment. This brings us to step 2. And step 2 is doing some GRE practice questions. So what did we just discuss? Well, we discussed getting a feel for the format of the questions and getting a feel for what questions actually test you. Once you have that foundation, and again, before taking your practice exam, actually do some of those questions. Once again, if you are using TTP, we have plenty for you to practice with, either in our intro section or even some of the earlier chapters. But the point is, if you get a few of those questions under your belt, you'll be more confident when you go into taking that practice exam. Now remember, this doesn't mean do hundreds of questions and study for weeks. It just means do enough practice questions that you feel like you're in a place to be able to understand or have a shot at the questions that you're going to be doing when you take your initial practice exam. I realize this isn't going to be everything under the sun. I realize there's still going to be questions or topics you don't understand in your practice test, but all we want to do is lead you to a place where you feel like you have a fair shot of understanding and getting the score that you are truly at when you take this practice exam. And as we'll talk about in a moment, this is really important because this is going to establish your baseline score, and this is going to set the tone for everything that you're doing moving forward. So again, take a day or two, do maybe 20 verbal questions, maybe 20 quant questions. I don't necessarily think at this stage you have to practice for the essay section. Yeah, take a look at what the essay is testing. And yes, you'll be doing the essay on your practice exam, but as we'll discuss, it's not going to be graded. So yeah, just get a feel for what it is and how to write it, and then you should be ready to dive into the next step of starting your GRE prep, which will be taking your practice exams, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now I want to talk about step 3, and this is a big one, determining your baseline score. I have talked to so many students over the years studying for the GRE, and they've always asked me how to get started, and they've tried to dive right into their studies without any rhyme or reason, and the issue with that is that they're doing it without knowing where they're starting. Now here's the deal. I know you probably don't want to take a practice exam a week or two into your prep. In fact, most people say, you know what, I don't think I'm ready. And my response is always the same. It's not about being ready. It's about giving yourself a clear picture of where you're at, right? I mean, imagine anything you do in life. Imagine a sport, like golf, for example. If you just went out and played around or played in a tournament or anything like that without knowing where you're at or your starting point, or heck, let's say you picked it up and you wanted to know how much you could improve over the span of time. Well, you need to know where you're starting at to know how you're going to finish. Imagine you're running a 5K and you want to shoot for a certain time in running that 5K. Well, what do you need to do early on? Well, you need to see exactly where you're at so you can start to track your progress of how you move forward. Now, GRE studying, it's not any different. You need to establish that baseline score. And what have we already discussed? Well, you're not going to go in and take that thing cold. You're going to spend probably a week getting through some of those questions, right? Understanding the format of the questions, and even practicing some. So by the time you get to taking your practice GRE, it's not as if you don't know what's going on. And yes, you're not going to be perfect. Yes, you likely won't be at your goal score, but that's not a reason to be scared, and that's not a reason not to take it. Because the reality is, you want a clear picture of how you're scoring. And that goes for something else. When taking the test, take it seriously and don't do things that are going to inflate your score. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard students say, well, it was my first one and I needed to pause it because I had to do something, or I needed extra time on a question. Don't do that, because then you're going to think you're higher than you are. And then when you take your next practice exam, you may think you haven't improved as much as you have because your initial score was too high. So it's not that difficult. Just make sure that you're following test day conditions, test day rules, and you'll be good. Now, what practice exam should you take? Well, ETS, they offer 5 total practice exams. 2 are free, 3 you have to pay for. I would say take the first free ETS practice exam, and as discussed a few seconds ago, do everything you would do at the test center, see where you score, and then you'll have a baseline score in place. And then, hopefully, you have a target score in mind. Of course, if you don't, that's not very difficult. Make sure that you go research programs that you're interested in, and at the very least, just get a score range. It doesn't have to be exact or exhaustive. Just get a particular range that you're in so you can start to see the clearing through the trees and how long it may take you to go from beginning to end to reach your target GRE score. This brings us to step 4, choosing effective GRE prep materials. All right, so let's think about this. You've practiced GRE questions. You've understood the format of GRE questions. You've taken your practice exam to get a baseline score. So you may be asking yourself, okay, now what? What is my next step? Well, you're going to have to get some sort of materials to learn from. And you want to make sure that you choose those materials effectively, because you don't want to start down a path only to realize months later that you made the wrong decision. So we've talked about this in the best way to study for the GRE video, but we'll talk about it a little bit more here. Number one thing you should be looking out for as you're seeking out your GRE prep materials is materials that have a clear study plan. In other words, a detailed roadmap that tells you where you need to go from beginning to end. Without that, you're just going to be flailing around with a lot of disorganized studying. Let's say you pick up, 3 GRE prep books and you're just randomly doing questions. You don't want to go down that path. There is a ton you need to learn to get through all the information that you need to succeed on the GRE. So just get something that allows you to do that. Now, one of my suggestions that I'll always tell you is getting a study plan that is topical and linear. What I mean by that is get a study plan that allows you to learn one topic at a time, practice that topic like heck, review what you've done wrong, and then move on to the next topic. Now, there's more to a study plan than just that. There's mixed review, there's error logs, and things like that. But the foundation of any great study plan, in my opinion, allows for topical learning. Yes, at Target Test Prep, that's how we laid out the study plan, and it's been very, very successful for a lot of students. And again, I think the main reason is because you have so much to learn, and you want it organized. You don't want to have to think about what it is you need to do when you sit down to study, because your studying could span over 3, 4, 5, even 6 months, and you just want some organization to what needs to be done. Now, you don't have to just get our course and take my word for it, of course. Go to GRE Prep Club. Look at reviews that students have left on other courses. They have verified reviews from actual students. Maybe some reviews will really resonate with you because you'll find students that are in a similar situation to yourself. And also, most courses should, at least ours does, offer some sort of free or low-cost trial. We offer a $1 trial that's full access for 5 days. So with our course, you can take a test drive, see how things go for 5 days, see if you can envision yourself using this course for your GRE studying. And you can do that with as many courses as you need to, so you can make the right decision on which course you'll use moving forward. Let's now talk about step 5. Create a foolproof GRE study schedule. All right, so what have we done so far? You have reviewed the GRE questions and formats of the questions. You've taken a practice exam. You have found your study materials. So what's next? Well, actually sitting down and starting your prep, right? Well, look, I can tell you that most GRE students are really surprised at how much time and effort and energy is really needed to succeed on the GRE, and most of those same students are either busy college students or busy working professionals. So you're going to have to sit down and really think about how you're going to fit in this study time into your daily routine. Yes, you'll probably have to give up certain things, social things, things that are probably more fun than GRE studying. But if you can prioritize your GRE prep, then it will be over sooner rather than later, and you can get back to doing the things that, of course, you may deem more enjoyable than studying for the GRE. Now, what do we recommend? Well, I say study for at least 18 hours a week if you can swing it, as a floor. So how could that look? Well, if you're working full-time, you could put in a few hours in the morning or evening after work, Monday through Friday. You could do 4 hours on a Saturday, 4 hours on a Sunday, and you're right at that 18-hour floor. You can do more hours than that. Some weeks you may have to do less, and then you can make up and do more the following week. And of course, if you do shoot for more, let's say you go for 25 or 30 hours, you just need to make sure that you're not burning yourself out. But in any case, getting this study schedule together is very important. Now, I'm sure you've heard the saying, easier said than done, right? So if you're someone who knows that things are going to start to get in the way of your GRE studying, then it's simple. Make a study calendar. Now, you can write it down if you have a planner, if you have a calendar app, put it in the app so that you know, regardless of how you're feeling on any given day, that you have to study. Let's say you're a night studier and you just have a really bad day at work and some people are going out for happy hour or for dinner. Well, if your study calendar says you need to study, then look at your study calendar, decline the invitation, and go home and study. These are things that are going to allow you, again, to get through your GRE studying as efficiently as possible. It's not going to go on forever, especially if you do it right, but you really need to sit down, plan this out, prioritize your GRE studying, and if you can do that and you can follow the right study plan, I'm confident that you'll be on your way to knocking the GRE out of the park. So that concludes this episode on how to get started with your GRE preparation. Please, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel, and we will be posting more videos in the future. And also, if there's any videos that you think you'd like to see, don't hesitate to drop a comment here, and we will make sure that we get to those in future weeks. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.